Hi, thanks for dropping by for another edition of Neighborhood Photographer right here at Visual Art Photography Tutorials. Today we have quite a challenge going on because it's not going to be an easy project. We're going to be doing macro photography and almost macro photography with spoons. Now, what are we hoping to achieve? Well, in the back of my mind, I'm looking to create an image that perhaps I would put on my wall, and then perhaps someone would look at it and say, wow, that's kind of cool, but what is it? You know, maybe they can't identify the fact that it's spoons. And then when you tell them, maybe it's like, hey, that took some thought. It's amazing that you could create something out of something like spoons. So that's what the challenge is today. And let me tell you, I don't think it's going to be an easy go. I'm going to show you some things that I'm going to do, and I'm going to give you some tips that may help you along the way on your journey photographing spoons or perhaps even other kitchen items or kitchen utensils, maybe forks or knives, but today is just spoons for this project. And it'll be interesting to see what you come up with and what different angles and different positions you put the spoons in for your project. So let's dig in and see what we can bring out of macro spoons today. So one of the key words for today is going to be patience, because I don't think for 1 minute that this is going to be easy. But you know something, sometimes working really hard pays off, and I think that's what we're going to have to do today. So it's macro spoons, and we're really looking for something that's very abstract. So if your brain kind of works like mine does, and you kind of like abstract things and abstract images, this project really might be for you. As usual, all questions and comments can be addressed down below. Let's go. So we're starting off today with the image that actually I like the most for my purposes, which is to hang on the wall. And again, like everything else, when you're talking about photography or anything to do with the arts, it really is to taste. And what floats someone's boat is not floating someone else's boat. This kind of floats my boat. You kind of stand back and you look at it and you see the shape of the spoons. Now, there are 8 spoons that I was using here, and they're highly reflective. So that part was working for me for this image. It did not work for me for other images, and we're going to get into that. We have some really big challenges here, but I'm showing you this one off the top. This was, for my purposes, the one I liked the most. Now, what did it look like originally? It looked like this, okay? Highly reflective again. These were the spoons. And you see this over here? That's the part of the spoon as it's bending out, and I didn't really want it in the image. But the first thing I did was I took it to Silver Efex Pro 2, which is a really great software for black and white, but there's tons of them out there. It just depends on what you want to do. But it's free, Nick Collection from Google, so you can get that online if you want. But I wanted to make it a little bit brighter, you see, so I took that into Silver Efex and really made it glossy. And then I didn't want that part of the spoon showing. I just thought it took away from the effect, so I erased it. And I came up with that. All right? So, challenges today. We have challenges of reflections. If I could do it, again, if I had utensils that weren't so shiny, I would use them because the reflections can really, really be a problem. And we'll go into that in a moment. Also, the background, really, really important. Now, what I'm using here is a black piece of velvet, all right? And that velvet it just absorbs every bit of light around, and it really, really works. And you're going to see how that will affect other images coming up. It's really good to have a black piece of velvet. But again, depends on what you're trying to accomplish. You may not want to go that way. But the background, whatever it is extremely important. Also, the orientation. Okay? Now, I use the curves here to good effect, I think, for these spoons. I did it here again. It's the same shot, but this one I colorized. I wanted to try something different. I actually like the first one a little bit better for my purposes. Just a simple black and white, really black and white, not many tones of gray there. All right, but you may want to go with some coloration. Depends on what you like. So, different orientation. Now, this is what I was talking about, reflections. These were highly reflective spoons. You see this here and all this here? That is a Tiffany lamp hanging above. And unless I want to painstakingly clone and erase all of these things, they're there. Now, because you can't really identify what it is, not so bad. But I think if you have spoons that aren't so reflective, you may actually find you like the results a lot. But I can't say that for sure because I don't have them. How about orientation again? We were talking about orientation. How about turning these spoons on their sides for something completely different? That's a different look. That's completely different. It almost looks like, some kind of dishes, that they use for outer space or something like that. Completely different. Hard to identify as spoons. Part of the abstract effect that we're looking for. How about perspective? That's really important too for spoons. Here's a shot, and now what comes into play here is depth of field that you're going to set on your cameras for the aperture. I used a shallow aperture here of about f3.2 on my macro lens. And again, I should say, some of these shots were full macro. Macro means life size. And some of these images were taken not at life size. They were taken maybe at half life size, things like that. Some were a little bit closer. So the good thing is that you may not have to use a macro lens. The other thing is I was using teaspoons, which are kind of small. If you use tablespoons, which are larger, you can get the same effect and you don't need to get as close. In other words, you probably don't need a macro lens. So that may work for you very well too. You may want to try using tablespoons. It may be just easier for your project. Anyway, shallow depth of field because I wanted this part, I wanted the actual spoons to be in focus, and I wanted this to be kind of, what is that exactly? I did take another shot at f16, and this was a little bit more in focus, and you could see, the handles, the stems, and things like that. But I just preferred to have it a little more abstract. But these are pretty clear over here. Now, again, problems with highly reflective spoons. Look at this. This just did not work for me. You can see the camera here, and you can see the window, and you can see the ceiling of the room. You can even see a painting on the wall. You can see that Tiffany lamp over here again. All kinds of stuff going on. Now, if you had less reflective material here, you would really be able to concentrate on the shape. It's the shape that was really attracting me here. Look at the shape. Beautiful. But it didn't really work here. Unless you wanted an effect where you wanted people to, be looking in the spoons and thinking, well, what can I see? Well, if that's the case, then that's fine. But for me, this didn't work. I wanted to concentrate on the shape of the spoons, and I really couldn't because there was just too much. I could look into it a little bit too much. All right, here. Again, you need the dark background for this one. But it didn't do anything for me at this orientation, so turned it on its side. Liked it better. You're only limited by your imagination. You do not always have to orientate things, head horizontally or vertically, or you can turn them on their side. You can do anything you want. It's up to you to decide what your finished project will look like as the artist, as the photographer. Okay, look at this one. Originally looked like this. All right. You can identify that as spoons for sure. Took it into Silver Effects Pro 2 and turned it into something. Now that's completely abstract. You can't really tell. It's just lines with shape. Maybe pleasing to some, maybe not so much to others. Personal thing. Here, okay, now again, the black background. These are lying down on the table on the black velvet. There's that Tiffany lamp again. But if you turn it upside down, it looks like you're looking at everything from underneath. Now, it almost looks like these spoons are floating in the air. But really, they're lying down on the table because that's what they're doing. But if you turn it upside down in post, look, completely different. Anybody for a pair of sunglasses? So to round it out, reflections are important. Background is important. The orientation is important. The depth of field is important. And of course, you're going to want to be using a tripod. And for all of this, I was shooting at an ISO of 200. You can shoot at 100, 400. It doesn't really matter because you're going to have your camera on the tripod, and preferably using a cable release or some kind of a remote shutter release. If I could give you a couple of really major tips on this, it would be really, really patient and experiment. Just go crazy, go nuts. I really hope that you managed to come up with an image that you feel is worthy of hanging on the wall in your home. Until next time, I'm Ray Scott reminding you it's not what you see, it's how you see it. And I'll see you soon.